Hi everyone. I just wanted to make a video for your feedback from your essays last week instead of sending an email. And I'm just giving you a warning now. There's a lot that I'm going to cover in this video. So please, if you need to pause the video for a second and go get a notepad, that would be great. The good thing about recording videos like this is you can pause them and rewind them and go back and even slow down the speed if you need to. But this stuff is really important. I'm mainly going to focus on kind of integrating sources and formatting and different things. I saw the things that I'm going to talk about in this video are issues that I saw in probably the majority of your paper. Some of you guys got this stuff figured out, but a lot of you are still trying to figure it out. So that's why I'm making this video. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to share this document with you. There's a lot of helpful links in it, and but just go ahead and just take some notes on this video first. So the first thing I want to talk about is how you write your title in a response essay. So all of you either came up with this really creative title or you simply called the title of your essay the title of the article. Now, if I were to name my article Kenya's Unusual Solution to the School Problem, Cancel the Year or Start Over, and then I wrote an essay about that, that would be a lie because I just took someone else's title and made it my own. So that actually isn't what you should give it. You should change it to something like this: response to, and then what here is in quotes is what you can write, like Kenya's unusual response. Or if you're writing, for example, a literary analysis over a book, let's say you're writing a literary analysis on The Giver, then you would name your title literary analysis of, quote, The Giver, end quote. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, I saw a lot of just really kind of basic formatting errors with your guys' titles, both the titles that were in your headers or the titles that were on your cover page or the titles that were embedded inside of your text. A lot of you are not capitalizing your titles correctly, okay? Please, 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 please make sure that you are reviewing your capitalization, especially in your titles, before you submit them. Um, and again, a lot of you are putting periods at the end of your titles, both in your header or on your cover page. And typically, titles do not have periods. Um, if a title might have a question mark or an exclamation mark, but if it's just a statement, you don't add a period, okay? Now, there's two links that I linked here. This first one, rules. This just goes over the basic rules for capitalizing any type of title. And the second one, the shortcut tool, is actually pretty great. I'll show you how to use it real quick. You basically type in, this is kind of a little shortcut, a little cheat, okay? But let's say I'm trying to figure out how to capitalize my title and I just don't know how to do it. I want to click this APA button. I go here, let's see, let's say I'm writing a narrative called The Day I, see how I'm writing it all in lowercase, but it's automatically capitalizing what needs to be capitalized. The day I lost my front teeth. Okay, and in that case, every single one of those words need to be capitalized, okay? So that's just a little cheat sheet, a little shortcut, but make sure you guys understand the reasons behind those changes. And like I said before, review this link. I'm not going to click on it, but it goes through all the different words and reasons that you would have to capitalize something. Okay, the other thing that I want to differentiate is the difference between italicizing, so that's like this, when you make the word slanted, or putting a title in quotation marks, okay? You typically italicize a complete work. So example, a book. If you want to put the name of a book in your essay, you can italicize it because it's complete. However, like the 4 articles I had you read last week, those are not complete. They're articles part of a larger collection of something. So you would put those in quotation marks. So pretty much any title of any article, you're going to put around quotation marks because that article probably comes from a bigger source of something. If I wanted to write the words New York Times, like if I wanted to reference that, that would actually be in italics because that is a publisher. It's a completed compilation of different things. So things that you would italicize, titles would be books, publishers. Titles that you would put quotation marks around would be articles, chapter titles, the name of a song, name of a poem, those kind of things. Okay? But definitely some mistakes I saw is you would write the name of the title in the essay and not even capitalize it or not even put quotation marks or not even italicize. And in that case, I have no clue if it's a title or if it's just words that you're writing or what. So make sure that both when you're writing the title of your paper and referencing titles of other papers inside of your essay, that you guys format those correctly. And I have some examples here so that you can see. So there's just some information about citing and introducing the authors and formatting the title correctly. So in your introduction paragraph for a summary response or essay, you should always include the full name of the author and at least the title. You can include the publisher if you want. It's not necessary because all of that publishing information can be found on the reference page. But here's an example of if you were writing the article about Kenya's education. So Abdi Latif Dahir, the first time I'm mentioning him, so I have to put the year in parentheses 2020, comma, author of the article, comma, Kenya's unusual solution to the school problem, cancel the year or start over, comma, and quotation mark states, and then I can go on and either give a direct quote or paraphrase or continue with my summary. But you'll notice the first time you mention the author's name, you have to have his full name, okay? And also the first time you mention the source, you have to include the year. Now let's say I want to use his name later, the author's name later in the same paragraph. All you have to say is his last name. And in this case, it's Dahir, okay? A lot of you were saying Abdi or Mr. Abdi Dahir. All you need is his last name. And I know in Kinyarwanda and other places it's confusing about which one's the last name or which one's the family name. Typically in English, the last name is like the last name in the set of names is the last name. So you can just use that last name, which in this case is Dahir. And since I already included the year when I introduced him, I don't need to include that again, okay? However, this is the catch. This goes for APA formatting. Let's say I start a new paragraph, and obviously I'm going to mention Dahir again. So you actually need to use his name, but also include the year in parentheses again. Now, let's say I refer to him a second time in that second paragraph. I don't need to include the year, okay? So that's just a little technicality on the side of how APA formatting works, okay? Now, let's get down to your reference page. I saw your guys' references are getting much, much, much better, okay? So I'm happy to see that. Some of you are still you don't really know what order to put the names in or what initial goes where or how do I put the title, how do I do what, okay? So here are the 4 articles, okay? So all of you should at least have one of these in your essay. And I'm just gonna show you on this document how I can change this to make it look more like APA. So first thing, we don't do bullet points, okay? So I'm gonna get rid of those. Get rid of all of those. And I'm gonna show you on Google Docs how to format this. So I'm gonna highlight everything. You notice I have these extra weird spaces. So I'm gonna go to my spacing option, remove space before paragraph, remove space after paragraph. Okay, now it's all squished together so tightly. But that's not how it should look either. I'm going to highlight, go back into my spacing options, double, okay? Some of you, yours looked like this, almost there, but I have to go to Format, Align and Indent, indentation options, change that none to hanging, apply, and bammo. Now I have a good looking reference page. Let's say this is my actual reference page. I want to actually move to here, this one here, back up to the top, because remember, it needs to be in APA format. So I'm just going to go here and add it. And everything else, or not, it's not APA format, alphabetical order, my bad. And yeah, and then actually technically, since this one was written a month earlier, since they're written by the same author, this one should actually come first. Because if it's the same author, same everything, then you go by order of publication. And that's what that should look like, okay? So I'm gonna leave that so that you guys can check that later. All right, and just in case you guys wanna have any specific questions about APA formatting, I put these two links here. Scribr is an excellent resource, and I'm gonna show you some more tools on the Scribr page that you can use. But these two links are here. This one is basically just a whole chapter on specific aspects of APA. I know I've given you a ton of APA resources, but there's just some more stuff and some more tips in here. And then this is from the Scribr website. This has just more information about, oh, what if I have two authors? What if I don't know the author? How do I do my in-text citations? How do I include page numbers? Do I include page numbers or not? Yeah, so just some of those questions that you guys might have. Okay, now this is a big one. I want you guys to focus on this, okay? So when you introduce a source, let's say I'm writing a response to Dahir's article from Kenya, okay? I introduce him, okay, he's established, the reader knows who he is, but let's say Dahir mentions someone else because he interviewed them or that person was referenced in the article. The person that's reading your essay probably didn't read your article, okay? So you need to provide some context. Who is that person you're talking about? Don't just mention their name and while you're writing your paragraph, just say, Gutierrez said this. I have no clue who Gutierrez is. What is their role? Are they um, a, is the author interviewing a professional about the statistics of dropout rates, or is this an interview of someone that's experienced a hardship and they're sharing their personal experience, or is this someone providing a critique or an affirmation with the author? Like what? Provide some context. What is this person's role? Why are they relevant to what you're about to share? Okay, and that goes for anyone. Okay, if anyone that's a new author or a new source, even if it's a source within a source that you've already quoted and you've already stated and stuff, you still have to provide some context onto who that person is and why they're sharing is relevant. So I'm going to show you guys this document, okay? And this is just kind of a 5-step process that you should follow for anytime you're integrating any quote into an essay, okay? Now, if you're providing the definition of a term or something, obviously this might look a little bit different, but generally, this is the guidelines you should follow. And the first step is you need to introduce the author of the quotation. That's kind of what I just said, okay? So because you are using someone else's words, make sure that you let the reader know this, okay? Because I was reading your guys's essays and sometimes I was like, is this their thoughts or is this someone else's thoughts? So you really need to make it clear that, okay, now you're bringing in someone else's words. The first time you use a quotation from a source in an essay, introduce the author in the work that the quotation is attributed to before you use the actual quotation in the essay. Later in the essay, you simply need to address the author's name by using the quotation, okay? Try not to use words like he says and she says throughout the whole essay. You need to be specific, okay, with who you're referring to. Okay, the second thing that you need to do after you introduce the author is you state the quotation. whether it's paraphrased or if it's a quotation, okay? You state it. So now I know, okay, this information is not from you. This is from the person that you just introduced, okay? So the quotation should add to your argument and flow logically and grammatically with the rest of the paper. To ensure this, make sure that you use a quotation of the proper length. A quotation that is too short or too long will disrupt the flow of the essay. When choosing a quotation, keep in mind that you want to contribute to your argument and not veer the paper into a different direction. Okay? Sometimes if you want to make it shorter, you can use the ellipses or simply paraphrase it. It might not be necessary to quote all of that stuff. Okay, the next thing that you need to do, don't just leave the reader hanging after you bring in this fantastic quote. You want to summarize the quotation, okay? So this step may not be necessary if the quotation is really easy to understand. Use your own judgment and discernment regarding this step. It is important, though, for the reader to understand that quotation and know that you have a similar understanding, okay? So are you in agreement with what they just said? Are you in disagreement? Those are things we need to know. To do the summary, rephrase the quotation in your own words. You can begin this sentence by using the phrase such as "in other words" or "this refers to," okay? So, if you decided to not do a direct quote and just provide a paraphrase, then this step might not be necessary, okay? Um, Now, the fourth step, don't just summarize it, okay? Now, a lot of you on your essays, I told you you need to go deeper, okay? It's great that you said that you agree with this person, but now you need to analyze the quote. And this is where the whole response part, or if you're writing a literary analysis, this is where you can provide your insight, your thoughts, your beliefs, your your opinions, okay? So analyzing a quote is much different than summarizing a quotation. The goal of summarizing is to simply retell the quotation in different words. Analysis, on the other hand, requires you to break down the quotation and examine its part carefully in order to reach its meaning. To do this, identify key words or key phrases that help you explain the significance of the quotation. Use the key words to help uncover its meaning and implications. You can italicize or quote these words into your analytical sentence. Use this step to think about the implications of the ideas in the quotation and provide your own commentary on its meaning. Okay, and we're going to look at an example of this here in a second with this whole Marx's example that you've seen in all of these. Okay, and then after you analyze, pull out some key terms, then this is the important part where you need to state the quotation's relevance to your argument. When I say argument, that's where you have to look at the topic sentence of the paragraph. What is the goal of this paragraph? Okay, because keep in mind you're using this quotation as a piece of evidence to support whatever you're trying to communicate to the reader. So, how is it relevant? Why do we care? Okay, this will make your argument stronger. This step is the most important. It ties your quotation back to the rest of your paper. This can be done in a variety of ways, but all include drawing a parallel between the quotation and your argument. Stating the quotation's relevance completes the argument and shows the reader that you have completed your thought. You should never end a paragraph with a quotation without explaining its significance to your argument. Okay, so this draws it all back together. Now we're going to read through this paragraph, and it goes through step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. Okay, sorry, step 5 is highlighted in a really dark blue, and it's hard to read, but we're going to read through this. Okay, so this is talking about communism from Karl Marx. Okay, so step 1, introduce the author. Karl Marx, writer of the pamphlet The Communist Manifesto, proclaims. So this communicates who's sharing it and where they're sharing it from. Okay, so introducing the author. What's step 2? The actual quote. Okay, so this is a quote from that Communism Manifesto. And notice it's italicized. Why? Because it's a complete work, okay? Okay, we go into green. Make sure you put the comma, put the quote. Communism abolishes all eternal truths, ... instead of constituting them on a new basis. Why did they put ... Was that in the original? Probably not. No, that's because it was a really long quote and the writer just wanted to bring out the important information. So they put a ... to show that there's other words there, but they just shortened the quote. And that's from Marx 81. This isn't APA format, so technically you would put the year, okay, of whatever the Communism Manifesto was published. You would put Marx, comma, the year. I'm not sure what 81 was. That must be the page number. Okay. Now, what's step 3? Go back if you have to remember. Summarize the quotation. Because maybe I'm reading about this. I'm like, oh, communism abolishes all eternal truths instead of constituting them on a new basis. What the heck does that mean? Well, this is where you come in. In other words, communism throws out all beliefs, not only ones that counter the ideas of communism. Oh, that makes more sense. Okay. Now, step 4, analyze the quotation. Marx's insistence on abolishment reflects the greater implication that communism not only represents a change in a political system or a belief, but also negates all previously accepted aspects of life. This would require a radical change of heart for all people. Okay, so we dive a little deeper. This wasn't explicitly mentioned in the quote or in your summary, but this is stuff that you have to dive a little deeper into, okay? And then lastly, step 5, sorry, it's really hard to read, but this is the important part that relates it back to the main idea of your paragraph and the whole argument that you're trying to bring up here. Marx's call for the abolishment of truths requires too much change in people's lives. His ideas are not ideal to change society, okay? And then, so there's a great example of steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all put into practice. And that should be the way that all of your quotes, so like for example, in your research paper coming up this week, I asked that you find 5 external sources. Those are 5 different sources. And you bring in at least 8 paraphrased quotes and 2 direct quotes. So even for those paraphrases, you can think about step 2 and 3 kind of the same thing, okay? But you still need to include step 1, 4, and 5 when you're paraphrasing, okay? And then for those direct quotes, I want to see this kind of structure in your guys' writing, because otherwise, if I was just going on about communism and randomly put in what's in green here and then ended my paragraph, you would just be leaving them hanging and they would be confused and like, what? What are you talking about? Okay. So I'm going to send this PDF with you guys so you can study it and look at it more carefully. Okay. All right. Moving back to what we're looking at over here. I hope that helps. Let's see. Okay. Another thing. So this is just another little bit. This will help with step, let's see, step 2, where you actually bring in the quote. Here's just some ways that you can kind of bring in the quote. So like Hamlet's task is to avenge a, we have the quote, okay? So we can, you can see these different structures. You can also begin a sentence with your own words and complete it with quoted words. You can use a full sentence followed by a colon and then introduce a quotation. Another way to introduce a critic's words is to use a descriptive verb followed by a comma. So this is probably the most common. Smith states, Smith remarks, Smith writes, Smith notes, Smith comments, Smith observes, Smith concludes, Smith reports, Smith maintains, Smith adds. Don't ever just say Smith says. That's really boring and it's not very powerful. Okay. If you lead in to the quotation, if your lead into the quotation ends that or as, don't follow it with a comma. So, for example, Smith points out that, you notice there's no comma, millions of students, because remember, it needs to make grammatical sense. It needs to flow. However, if you start with in Smith's view, you need a comma because that's a prepositional phrase. Okay, yeah, so this is just a handy tool. This is linked to the document. You guys have access to that. Okay, now one thing that I wanted to say is you guys need to make sure that when you're writing a response paper, that you're not writing a response to the topic, but you're writing a response to the actual article. So, for example, I saw a lot of you give a great summary of the article about Kenyan schools being canceled, and then in your response, you just focused on coronavirus, the topic of coronavirus, and you didn't even really mention too much about what was said in the article. Remember, this is not an informational essay about what you think. This is a response to what the author says in their article. So you summarize it, you give an objective summary, and then you give a subjective response. But that response is not baseless. You need to bring in quotes from the original text and say, this is what Dahir said, and I agree with it because of this, or I disagree with it because of this. Don't just go and talk about it. Um, don't just think, oh, this is about coronavirus, so I'm going to talk about coronavirus in Rwanda and not even talk about what was mentioned in the article, okay? Remember, this is a response. It's a special type of paper where you have to respond directly to what the points and arguments that the author is making, okay? So that means in your response part, you need to be including statements from the actual article, okay, in your response, okay? And I didn't see that with some of you guys. Now, the other thing that you need to do is differentiate what is your thought and your stance from what the author's stance is. And when you follow this format that I showed you earlier, it's a lot more clear. Otherwise, when I'm reading it, I'm like, is this something that you thought of? Is this something that you read about? It's just not very clear, okay? So when you follow that structure that I said earlier, it's a lot more clear about what are your thoughts and what are the thoughts from someone else, okay? So make sure you differentiate that. The other thing I'd like to say is try to avoid using words like I think or I believe. That just kind of weakens your argument. Um, think about if your mom or dad is trying to punish you and they tell you that you need to go to your room. What if they said, I think you need to go to your room? Or what if they say, go to your room, right? One is kind of this thought, whereas one of the other one is kind of this command, right? And you can do the same in your writing. You can communicate an opinion in a lot more direct and authoritative way by taking out those wishy-washy words like I think, I believe, okay? You can state something like a fact, but it's still be an opinion, and it's a lot more powerful, okay? So that's another thing. Now that you guys have spent like 3 or 4 weeks really focusing on APA, I've been giving you guys nitty-gritty details and feedback on what you need to change. I'm going to give you guys 2 shortcuts that are really going to help you, okay? The first one is this thing called APA Citation Generator on Scribr, okay? You just simply go in there. Let's say you found a website that you really like this one, okay? I'm going to copy the URL. I'm going to go here. I'm going to click website because I'm citing a website. I'm going to paste that website and push search. And look what it comes up with. Oh, yeah, that's the article. I click it, and then I look at it fills it in, the title, the URL, the initials, the name, the day, site, source, and it is going to generate for me exactly what I need to include on my reference page, okay? So you can just go ahead and just copy and paste this to your reference page, okay? And voila, you don't have to do all this crazy stuff anymore. And now what about in-text citation? I click on it and look at this. It tells you exactly, don't ignore that C. The only reason that C is there is because I did this before. Let's do this one right here. Okay, so in-text citation. It still shows up that B. Ignore the B. Okay. According to a new search, this is to show how you would cite it if it's paraphrased and you don't include the author in the text, then you would have to include the author and the year in parentheses. This shows you if you're doing a direct quote, it's the same thing. And this shows you if you mention the author's name in the text, then all you need to include is the year in parentheses. So this is a really great tool. I recommend you guys using it. You can use it for anything. Most of your guys' stuff is probably going to be a website because if you were on campus, you could probably use our books that we have, but most of the things you're going to use are our website. If you find a journal article, when it says journal article, that's not actually like a New York Times article. That's like a scholarly journal. You guys can find that if you have access to any type of like JSTOR or those kind of things, or a book. If you guys do have books, or if you find an ebook and you want to quote something, it has a different type of citation, a report, or an image, or there's all of these different things. Okay, so ebook is different than book. You find something on Facebook, which I do not recommend. An online video, a PDF document, a sculpture, a survey, a textbook, a website. Don't use Wikipedia ever, but a YouTube video. You can just click on any of that and it makes it super easy for you. And then you just push, you can even, let's say I'm looking for a title, but I can't find it. I can go in and just fill this in manually, okay, and type in this stuff here and then push at the end, cite source, and it'll bring me to what I need to include on my reference page, and it'll show you how to do an in-text citation. So this is a great tool. You guys should definitely use it. Okay, and the other thing that I'm going to give you guys is an APA template, okay? You guys have been doing a really good job of taking my feedback and trying to get your APA templates in the best way possible. But let's be honest, no one creates a template from scratch every single time. I've written over 100 essays and papers in APA format, and I never created it from scratch. I always just used a template. So I shared this with you guys. And you guys can use this template from now on for your papers, for me, for CHASS, for anything else. And just go in there and change these things. For example, shorten title. Let's say I'm doing my research, or no, let's just say response to Kenya's unusual solution to the school problem. To the school problem. Cancel the year and start over. Cancel the year and start over. Okay, you guys will notice that I intentionally didn't capitalize these things the way I'm supposed to because I want you guys to go in there to that tool and see. Okay, Command C. I'm gonna go over here to my handy dandy tool that I have now and just check. I wonder if I capitalized that correctly. Let me see. Let me see. Command paste. Oh, they just changed everything. Okay, good to know. Oh, wait. Okay, now it's all corrected. Oh, yep, I did have some mistakes. I'm gonna go back over here. Bammo. Now it's correct. Okay, name. What's my name? Luke Dreiling, Rich Toronto Leadership Academy. Oh, I need to include a shortened title of my paper. Let's see, it needs to be in all caps. Response to, and put the quotes, Kenya's unusual solution. And I'm just going to make that, I'm going to make it a shorter title, okay? Now, but I want that to also be on the rest of my pages, so I'm going to copy it, Command C, go down here and change it here. Bammo. I'm not sure why this 2 is there. Now they're on the same line. All right, full copy of the paper. So that needs to, I need to copy and paste this. Command C, go down here, full copy of the paper, Command V, bammo, and I can erase all of this and start writing my paper, okay? Now when you go down here, I even included a reference page for you guys. So let's say I need to go in here, where was that? Oh, here it is. And I want to go back to my reference list. Let's say I want to do this one. I'm going to copy it and say, oh, I keep going back to that other document, that's what I want to do my thing. Let's say Command V, and bammo, there it is. Perfect. Okay. Format, line indent, indentation options, hanging, apply. And that's what that should look like, okay? If I want to make that hyperlink, there we go. So it's a lot easier, you can see, and if you type your paper up here, it's all in APA format now, and it's a lot easier when you have a template, isn't it? So you guys can go ahead and go to File, make a copy, and then save this onto your Drive so that you can go to this every time you want to create something new. So what that also means is you have no excuses to have any mistakes with your formatting for your research paper, okay? So hopefully you guys enjoy this template and this Scribr APA citation generator. Hopefully that'll make your APA citations and your APA formatting a lot easier now, okay? Please go back and watch parts of this video that you know you need more help on, and please go through and look at all of these links just to make sure that you are good to go. And please, as always, message me if you have any questions about anything. All right, bye guys.